Have you ever stopped to think about everything your parents have done or still do for you? How often do we truly recognize their sacrifices? And how many times do we simply assume that everything we receive was their obligation, never a gesture of love, devotion, or self-sacrifice? Nowadays, more and more, we hear stories of exhausted parents, emotionally overwhelmed, trying to give their best to their children, but receiving only indifference, demands, and often ingratitude in return. But is all of this solely and exclusively the children's fault? Or do society, the values that surround us, the pressures of daily life, and even new technologies also play a part in this scenario of growing distance and lack of recognition? If you look back, you'll probably remember a typical childhood scene. Maybe a mother giving up on a dream to work more and guarantee the basics at home, or a father putting his fatigue aside to play with his child after a long day of hard work. Small actions, almost always invisible to the eyes of children, and even to young adults. Maybe at some point you've even heard that classic phrase, "It's their responsibility. They chose to have children," as if raising a child were equivalent to following a manual guidebook, with no pain, no uncertainty, and no sleepless nights. This distorted view has gained roots in our era, reinforcing what many are now calling the generation that does not value the sacrifices of their parents. But where did all of this actually start? Before we point fingers, we need to understand the context we are living in. Society has changed, a lot. In the past, parents had almost absolute authority, and children grew up in an environment filled with restrictions. Today, we have the complete opposite. Many parents feel guilty for not being present all the time and try to compensate with gifts, permissiveness, and a lack of boundaries. The legitimate desire to offer what they themselves didn't have in childhood has in many cases led to young people who confuse rights with privileges, who do not know the value of effort, and who believe that being loved is the same as being served. This inversion of values is amplified by social media, where comparison is constant and consumption is immediate. Seeing friends showing off material accomplishments or luxurious experiences makes it look like what parents provide is never enough. The truth is that, although the digital era has brought the world closer together, it has also pushed many families apart. More and more often, parents and children share the same physical space, but live in completely different universes. Parents trying to talk, to teach, to build bonds, and children immersed in screens, distracted by likes, followers, and passing trends. This emotional disconnection leads to a false sense that what one has is always too little, and that parents are only there to fulfill lists of demands, and not as sources of learning, support, and affection. And this unfortunately leaves scars. Parents who reach the limit of physical and emotional exhaustion, feeling invisible within their own home. Children who grow up insecure, always thinking they are missing something, unable to see that true value lies in the simplest gestures, in shared stories, and in the silent affection of everyday life. However, reducing this phenomenon to the selfishness of the younger generation would be far too simplistic. We must recognize that we live in an increasingly immediate society, oriented towards consumption and appearances, which demands perfection from parents at all times. Never before has it been required that parents be present, engaged, up-to-date, loving, firm, flexible, and, on top of all that, fully accomplished professionally. Amid so many demands, many parents end up choosing not to disappoint their children, forgetting that setting boundaries and transmitting values is an act of love, not harshness. And herein lies the paradox. The more parents give of themselves without demanding anything in return, the greater the risk that their efforts are seen only as obligation, or even worse, become completely invisible. It is essential to provoke reflection. Do we truly recognize what is behind that plate of food on the table, that silent encouragement, or even that no said with pain in the heart? Valuing the sacrifices of parents is an act of empathy, of maturation, and above all, of humanity. It's an invitation to self-knowledge and gratitude. It's not about idolizing or romanticizing parents, ignoring their mistakes and limitations, but rather about seeing the real effort, the battles fought in silence, the difficult choices made simply out of love. Maybe you watching right now have recognized yourself in some of these situations, whether as a child, a parent, or both. Maybe you have already felt the pain of not being seen, of having your effort invalidated. Or maybe you have never stopped to thank for everything you received, in whatever way it was possible, within the limitations of whoever cared for you. But the good news is that there is always time to strengthen relationships, to rebuild bonds, and to create a healthier and more generous life together. The first step is, undoubtedly, dialogue. Speaking openly about feelings, expectations, frustrations, and dreams creates essential bridges for mutual understanding. Showing gratitude isn't just about saying thank you, but also about being willing to listen, to notice each other, to give back with actions, respect, and understanding. Parents and children can grow together, learning from each other, overcoming differences, and building more positive references for the next generations. Throughout this video, my intention wasn't to place blame, but to shed light on a challenge that grows every day in our society and that now, more than ever, needs to be faced with courage, empathy, and responsibility. If you feel this content makes sense, share it with someone who may benefit from this reflection. Comment below on how your relationship with your parents is, or how you deal with recognition within your family. Subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, so you don't miss the upcoming videos, and above all, take at least a moment today to recognize the effort of those who have been by your side in all the important moments of your life. Change begins with a small gesture of gratitude, and you can make a difference. See you in the next video.